Hello, welcome. It's another episode of the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. My name is Nathan. Our show is proudly brought to us by Bet Power. If you want the best odds and the biggest payouts and an all-round lovely betting experience, then Bet Power is the entity for you. Visit their website, sign up and enjoy the great goodies they have. And we thank them so much for sponsoring this show. The AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. My name is Nathan Carr. Many thanks for joining us. If you have anything to tell us, send us your WhatsApp messages on the number right there on your screens. And let's discuss a crazy tournament that has lived up in terms of expectation, drama, plot twists, great goals, and everything in between. We'll be focusing on the host nation and that epic battle with Senegal. We'll talk about the other game as well. We'll preview the games that will happen later today as the round of 16 comes to a close and the competition will get even more intense as we head into the quarterfinals. So stick and stay. The next 2 hours or so should be fun. It should be exciting. It should be great. This is the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. We'll take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into the action with my guests who are very ready and very willing to share their great insight with all of you watching us. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. My guest in studio, I'll be getting a lot more guests. But my guest for now is Kwame Safo. Kwame, how are you doing?
Hello, Nathan. I'm good.
The drip is always eternal.
It's eternal. How do you say that in French? Très, très eternal. In French is comme si, comme ça.
Don't worry, we'll get better with time. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be getting other guests. Joining us on the Zoom will be John Buff. We'll speak to John in a bit. He's in Abidjan. He'll give us a very interesting feel of how Abidjan is reacting to the craziness that happened last night. Talking about the craziness, though, it was a game involving Senegal, defending champions, and Côte d'Ivoire, the host. Now, Senegal needed to fight off a jinx, really historical jinx. Now, since 2010, no defending champion of the AFCON has gone on to hold their title. If you are a champion post-2010 in the AFCON, just know that you cannot defend your title. And Senegal themselves had another piece of history to fight against. They do not beat Côte d'Ivoire in the AFCON. And so all of that came to bear as the Teranga Lions took on the Elephants of La Côte d'Ivoire in the third round of 16 encounter. That was, I think it was the fifth round of 16 encounter that was played in the AFCON 2023. Let's enjoy the highlights. The drama of the penalty shootout playing itself out in the AFCON 2023. Côte d'Ivoire 5, Senegal 4, 1-1 after 20 minutes. I'll not even talk about the pandemonium in Abidjan. I'll leave that for a little later when I get on the Zoom with John. But that was crazy.
Football, if someone told, yesterday we were here.
Yes.
A good friend of ours was here saying Ivory Coast will be battered, they will be destroyed, they will be annihilated, there will be no comeback. And even though in my heart of hearts I knew Ivory Coast would lose the game, and I even said that, they will lose in extra time. How, and you see, the Senegalese have themselves to blame.
Okay. On
paper, they were the better side. On the grass, they were the better side. But this should tell football-loving people that the time of parking the bars, sitting back, I feel like we've gotten to an age whereby, in as much as people try to defend or teams try to defend, attacking play too has gotten very innovative. After Senegal scored the first goal, the first 10 minutes, Senegal were the best team. Even in the first half, you watch the highlight. Yeah, Ivory Coast had a possession of 60-40, but they couldn't create anything. But whenever Senegal went for it, they were deadly. So I would think that because you are the better team, take the bull by the horn. You can score 3-4. They were there for the taking. They didn't do that. What they did was that they sat back. And by sitting back, you give the Ivorians more confidence. And they are playing at home. One other thing to touch upon was when we come coaches, they are very important. Yeah. They are very important to football. And what the assistant coach, he does not have 15 years experience. He does not have any shining or glamorized reputation or whatever. But one thing he could do very well yesterday was he got the starting 11 point on. Not so much about the Gradel bit, but the midfield. Because there was always that three midfield of Kesse, Fofana, Sangare. He noticed that you have a player of the quality of Jean-Michel Seri, ex-Fulham player. And he was the man of the match yesterday because he gave you something in the midfield you were not getting from Kessie. And then as the game progressed, the substitutions were spot on because Pepe was the person who got that penalty for them because Gradel was tired. He brought on Adingra, he brought on Pepe, he brought on Kessie.
Brought on Ale.
And he brought on Ale. There was just this kind of energy, and you just can't. It's called reading the game, because I know managers who would rather bring on an old person who cannot impact the game in any way. And you see, reading the game is very important, and I think that's what helped Ivory Coast in the long run. But I think Senegal really have themselves to blame for this. This was a game for them to take. They started brilliantly. One would expect them to go on, try to be attacking-wise, but then they played like a certain national team I knew, sat behind, soaked up because how long can you soak up the pressure? You have quality more than them. You can't soak up the pressure for 120 minutes, and that cost them dearly because when it comes to penalties too, it's a lottery game. And I'll be even saying it's a lottery game is wrong. It's a wrong thing to say.
There's an exact science to it.
And you could tell, I tweeted this, that Edward Mendy had done his research, but penalties has never been hit because if put a keeper like Gabaski in Mendy's position and let him get all the spots right, Mendy got like 3 or 4 of the directions correct, but he couldn't save any of the penalties. So, I mean, that's what you get for dragging the game all the way to penalties. I think Senegal, and you could see the pain in Lamine Camara. He couldn't walk off the pitch. How much they have defending champions. This is how much it meant to them, and you could see that some countries, some teams, this means so much to them. You are the defending champions. Some people have not won it in 42 years and they just left sagging and fighting journalists. No remorse. So it was just a wonderful game, and I'm happy for the Ivorians. Someone said last night was the night the AFCON was reborn. I cannot disagree.
Let me get to the Zoom. Let me speak to my very good friend John Bafo. He's in Abidjan. I don't even know what John looks like this morning. I don't know whether he has slept. But yeah, let's get to the Zoom. John, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning. I'm good. I'm only running on 3 hours of sleep, but we have to do what we have to do.
I see you. You look like somebody who has been partying all night. Correct me if I'm wrong, but anyway, let's talk about people like you, the fans, and the millions of other fans who were at the ground or watched on TV and spilled over into the street. How was Abidjan after the game?
So the game was in Yamoussoukro, and getting out of the stadium was very hectic, but it was electric, and everyone was very excited about the win. You could see from the people who lived in and around the stadium came out in the streets. Everyone was just up everyone is just up and enjoying it and celebrating. So that was really fantastic to see the sea of orange jerseys and everyone, all the fans which were there to support the Ivory Coast team. So really, like, it's just scenes of jubilation, and people were so excited about this result. But I think it's also good for AFCON that Ivory Coast went to the next stage. I know that you, Nathan, you were for Senegal, and I happened.
I was Team Senegal.
Team Senegal, and I happened to actually be sitting with the Senegalese COP, and they really were so passionate about their team. For over 120 minutes, they literally did not sit down. They were clapping, they were dancing, they were making so much noise to the point where I couldn't hear the whistle. The only time that I heard the whistle literally was at the end for the penalty kicks, because it was close to our side. But you couldn't hear the PA system. You couldn't hear anything. You could just only hear the jubilation and the noise from the Senegalese side. So it's kind of sad to see the defending champions to go out, but I mean, you could not have scripted this. Ivory Coast played so well, not in the first half, more in the second half. And like Kwame said earlier on, it's the changes that Emerse Faye came with. And, we're now behind him. In Emerse Faye, we trust. Hopefully he'll be able to lead us all the way to the final. But one last thing, the president of Ivory Coast, known as Alassane Ouattara, said after that 4-0 loss that to despair is not an Ivorian thing, and we could see the response from the Ivorian team. They took it at heart. They really took it at heart, and they wanted to be able to perform for their fans. And even at 1-0, there was a sense that even if they had lost 1-0, they would have done their best, because they were dominating possession, like you said earlier, like Kwame said earlier. They were doing their best to try to push. And at one point, people started getting a bit discouraged, because they were doing all they could, but the goals were not coming. And in the end, it came with the penalty. And, Kessie also took 2 penalties and saved the team as well.
I see. You talked about the fans and where you were. Can you just give me an idea of the evolution of the emotion? Because you were close to the Senegalese and you saw the Ivorian fans. Can you just run me through how everybody's emotions were at several points in the game? So 1-0 Senegal, 1-1 Cote d'Ivoire, the drama of extra time, and then the penalty shootout. How were people reacting to the things that were happening in the game?
So being with the Senegalese fans, from the beginning, they were just kind of taunting the Ivorians, saying that, we're here, we're going to beat you 2-0. This is our home, Senegal, and here, this is our home. We're going to be able to beat you. And the goal that came early in the match really calmed down the Ivorian fans. At the beginning, they were there chanting, supporting the team, but at 1-0, you felt like they were apprehensive. They didn't want to get another 4-0 drubbing like they did in the last game. But little by little, you could see some confidence be rebuilt. And funny enough, when the likes of Sébastien Haller, Kessié, or even Simon Adigra came on, even before they came on, while they were warming up, everyone was just shouting their names, really excited about them coming through. Especially Kessié, the last game that he had was quite poor, so his reaction was fantastic. The 2 goals that he scored in the penalties as well. So at 1-0, the Senegalese had an upper hand. At 1-1, the Senegalese were still pushing. They said to themselves, okay, listen, it is what it is. They'll still win 2-1. And then at 2-1, at the penalties, they were still pushing. They were still excited and supporting the team. But after the game, you could see the devastation on their faces. I've never seen as many adult women and men crying.
Wow.
They were just there sitting very distraught. And thankfully, the Senegalese team, some of the players, including Mane, came to salute the fans, and I thought that was fantastic. It showed some kind of connection between the Senegalese fans and the players, and that's something that I believe that you can't be created out of nothing. Some other teams in Africa should probably take a pointer there, and yeah.
Interesting thoughts. So, John, just run us through the emotions post game. We've seen some of the videos, we've seen some of the pictures, but we cannot imagine how it was living that experience. So how was it like? You mentioned that it was tough getting out of the stadium. So how was Yamoussoukro? I'm sure you got to Abidjan, not too long after the game. How was Abidjan reacting? And how is Abidjan this morning? How are people still soaking in the drama from last night?
So this morning, it seems like everyone is tired. It seems like everyone is running at a slower pace.
Okay. Is it a regular day? Have you been giving a holiday?
No, yeah, it's a regular day.
Okay.
But I've seen a lot of Burkina Faso jerseys. I know that they played today. So a lot of people have been are going to support them. And I've also seen a lot of Moroccan jerseys because of the favor that they did for Ivory Coast to allow them to be in the next stage. But last night, like I said, when we got out of the stadium, people were in the streets jumping around, blowing the whistles, vuvuzelas, really just elated at the fact that...
Was some sea song on rotation?
Yes. The time Six song was on rotation. People were there just dancing. You could see that the passion for the football and the passion for the support for the Ivorian team was a genuine thing. So it's not something that can be made. And you could see that people were really there to encourage the team, and they were genuinely happy. And I hope that the Ivorian team can continue to make the fans proud and to continue to ensure that this AFCON is something that they can be proud of, and hopefully go all the way to the final and win it as well.
I mean, final question. Have you heard are there any reactions from players, Immense Fai, maybe President Ouattara? What kind of reactions have been put out by those who were heavily involved in the game last night?
So from what I've seen, the President Ouattara has called the team to congratulate them. And then I also saw actually from Mane, who he came out to say that the best team won. And I think that he was right in that Senegal was the best team. Debrief from Emerse Faye himself, because we had to make it down from Yamoussoukro back to Abidjan. It's about a 2-hour or 3-hour trip. But even when we got back at 2 a.m, people in Abidjan were still out in the streets celebrating. So I don't think there'll be that much productivity in Abidjan and the rest of the country today. But it's good for the heart as well.
All right, John. Thank you very much. Félicitations à la Côte d'Ivoire and amusez-vous bien.
Merci bien et puis à bientôt.
All right, à plus. All right, so that was John Boafo, sports analyst. He's based in Abidjan, giving us a very interesting feel of how things went last night. Let's have a look at how the newspapers covered it. And I love this because it gives people an idea of what the local press is saying concerning the AFCON. You can imagine a lot of very partisan headlines, but there you have it. Le Veille, that's the newspaper, like the Morning Week or whatever. They say, héroïque, les éléphants, I think terrasse les lions, héroïque, les éléphants terrasse. So effectively, they are saying that heroic, the elephants crashed the lions. So like they crashed them. There's another paper, Soir Info, aside the politics, they said, les éléphants barisent en flie, en quart de finale. So the elephants make it through to the quarter-final. That's on the bottom side there. And if you open the paper, it says, les éléphants au bout des suspens. It says, the elephants at the edge of suspense. So really, it's just crazy stuff there. The paper's capturing that. Fraternité Matin says, le sursaut. Les sursauts effectively means a jump or a leap. So les sursauts, que de bonheur, what joy, what goodwill. Les images d'une folie nuit. The images from a crazy night. They call it a crazy night. Une folie nuit. And you can see all of that in the pictures inside the newspaper. So you can imagine the papers are very happy capturing Côte d'Ivoire's win. And then you can tell that the pictures from the game as well. And on the right-hand side of the page, you can tell these are some previews to the game, talking about the Congolese game. This one, Louis Victoria sur le grill, of course, talking about Egypt. This one says, this one is from Super Sport. It says, pardonnez, quittez sur la route, les éléphants arrivent. They say, excuse me, get out of the way. The elephants are coming. I love this headline. Pardonnez, quittez sur la route, les éléphants arrivent. So it says, move out, the elephants are coming. And then héroïques éléphants in there as well. Heroic elephants, all the lovely descriptions. Le Patriote says elephantesque. So they describe it as huge or gigantic, elephantesque. All right. So really that's how some of the papers captured it in Côte d'Ivoire. It just gives you a fair idea of how everybody is seeing it. Some of the stories on the front page, some on the back page, some on the middle page, is everywhere.
I'm so happy for them. And yesterday I watched it with few Ivorian fans. They were like, it's Senegal, we beat Senegal. They just couldn't believe it. They just wanted a good performance.
Yeah. To be honest, I'll be honest, I thought Senegal to win. But there was a sneaky feeling in the pit of my stomach that this would not go well for Senegal. And I think the longer the game dragged, you could just tell that the Ivorians would come back into it. And like you said, thumbs up to Imes 5 for the changes he made. And I think the changes really helped. Edwin, we'll get your thoughts on the transfer, but just initial thought. Yesterday, you nailed it. Also, you handed down the death sentence to Cote d'Ivoire for them to say, hold my beer.
There are a few times as a pundit, you have to just raise your arms and say, pardonnez-moi.
I like that. I like that.
And this was one of those moments. As you said, I predicted that Senegal would batter the Ivory Coast. Those were my exact words. those were my exact words. And that's how it looked like being after 10, 15 minutes of the game. Senegal were fantastic in those early minutes. And that's exactly what I predicted. I thought they would come out swinging. I expected the Ivory Coast to, keep it calm and keep them out for a sustained period. They didn't. But what I did not expect was Senegal loosening that pressure and allowing the Ivory Coast to take control. Some might say that it was a strategy. Maybe the Ivory Coast improved as the half went on. Maybe that tackle from Mane, it's killed their momentum at a point because the injury took a while, took some time off the clock.
Okay.
So maybe that killed their momentum. Maybe the Ivory Coast got in after that. But you have to credit the Ivorians for how they recovered and responded to going behind. They did not let their heads drop. Other teams would have just fallen behind and allowed Senegal to take over. But they kept at it. They kept going at it. Even in the first half, when they didn't seem to be creating enough chances to test Edouard Mendy, you still felt there was a lot of quality there. There was some promise there. And in the second half, they just built on that. Eventually got their reward from the penalty spot. And when they went to penalties, it was anyone's game at that point. And their players were up for it. Yeah. I don't believe that penalties are purely luck. I think there's some structure, there's some skill, there's some science to it. And we'll check that out later on the touchpad analysis.
I just want to say this before we have a look at the shootout. I thought the Ivorian midfield, if you have a midfield that's not too great on technical ability, what you have is physicality. And I thought the Ivorians used their physicality very well.
Very well.
Because at the point I was wondering why Senegal couldn't get going in midfield. And it later struck me that, wait a minute, these guys are out-muscling these Senegalese.
You see, and I think that's what Seri gives you, because Kesse yesterday in his post-match said he was one of the old ones, the older generation feeding out. Seri gave them something in the sense that when the Senegalese tried to move forward and they had the flair of Lamine Camara, you see, coach has something like you need to feel the sensation. They felt the sensation, and like you said, maybe Mane could have helped them out, but he had to play a very cautious game because everyone said that was a red card. He was lucky to be on the pitch. They had to play a very cautious game. It was about progressing the ball, and they barely could progress the ball to the final third. They have a lot of quality in the final third, but you look at that midfield. He didn't even start Pape Matissa. And when
he did.
And you see,
it was Pape Matissa who started alongside.
There was a point. You see, to curb the turbulence, he was bringing on Ganagay.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, that's a right substitution because you need someone to match that physicality. Ganagay couldn't step on the pitch, then the penalty was given.
So
if he had come on like a minute or two later, he could have called that turbulence the Ivorians were causing.
Right at the start of the game, I was doubtful because I thought that Senegal would overload that midfield and control it. But as you said, physicality. There was a moment that encapsulates that. Fofana just brushed Lamine Camara off the ball to win the ball back. And that was what we saw throughout the half. Jean-Michel Seri and Fofana, they dominated that midfield in terms of physicality. Even the flair of Lamine Camara and Pape Matissa couldn't deal with it. All
right, let's get to the other aspect of the game that we all enjoyed watching. The penalty shootouts. And Edwin made the point about a method. The shootouts have a method. And so in the last 10, 15, 20 years, the shootouts have gone from just hit and hope to now walking into that with a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, and a lot of information that you can use to tilt the skills your way. So let's have a look at the penalty shootout, and then we'll get to the touchpad and dissect the kicks and figure out where is it that the Ivorians got it right and how the Senegalese missed their way in the penalties. And they made it through. They went past the Lions, who are going back home. And like we've said, there's something about the AFCON. Since 2010, defending champions have not gone past the round of 16. Round of 16, they haven't gone past the round of 16. So think about it. If your country wins the AFCON, be very concerned, because probably in the next edition, they might not make it past the round of 16. Let me get to the touchpad. Edwin Kwakofi's picked out a few things from the game that you would like to share with us. Edwin.
Hello, Nathan. I'd like to go through the 2 goals that were scored in normal time in the game. First one, obviously for Senegal, they took the lead very early on, and it came from an error from a very experienced Ivory Coast player. So as the throw-in comes in, I'd like to point it here. Mane gets the ball. So there's no danger here. Aurier is on him. There are 2 other players behind him. Mane has nowhere to go. And then the error comes from Serge Aurier. Take a look at it here. Here. What he's doing right here, it's right. He's a captain. He's directing his teammates. Because there was someone, a Senegal player free here. He's telling his teammates to move and cover that area. But what this does is, he takes his eye off Mane for 1 second. And that's the quality of Sadio Mane. You take your eye off him for 1 second and he can produce. So once he does that, he loses focus. Mane is able to turn on his outside and then puts a wonderful ball into the box. And this is all about the quality of Diallo. This is wonderful quality. The control and finish. You can't really blame the defenders there. They had everything covered. But when you have a player of the quality of Diallo, you have a player of the quality of Mane, this is what happens. You can't really avoid it, and you concede a very, very avoidable goal.
So Serge Aurier was to blame.
Serge Aurier was...
He's on the job for a second.
1 second. And he was actually directing his teammates to... He had this covered, so he wanted his teammates to move. He takes his eye off for 1 second. Mane is able to turn and put the ball into the box. And that is how the goal comes about.
I see. Interesting stuff there. So the lesson of the moment, don't sleep on the job. Not for a second.
not even for 1 second.
Especially against quality like Sadio Mane. And now, when I was watching that sequence evolve, the throw-in comes in, I go like, Mane, that's a wrong decision. What are you trying to do? And I thought he didn't have enough support. But for him to find the cross on the outside.
On the outside with his weaker foot.
And hit
that's amazing.
And the cross takes out. An Ivorian player attempts to head the ball.
And that was it. I think he misjudged the flight of the ball. Didn't look behind him, just threw himself at it. And he was the closest to even make a tackle, so he was just off balance. Gave him all the room to man, and it was a powerful shot.
A very powerful shot.
I watched it, didn't see it coming. I'm imagining the goalkeeper.
Wonderful control initially to get the ball onto a position for him to take the shots on the half volley. Wonderful shot. So the equalizer for the Ivory Coast.
80th minute.
Very late equalizer for the Ivory Coast. 80th minute. Okay, so so over here, we stop it here. He has a couple of options to make the pass to, or maybe 3 options. He can either go through here, reverse the pass back to his teammates. Try and wait for the forward to make the run and then find him, or go very long to Nicolas Pepe, who's making the run on the outside.
And Pepe is actually lifting his hand.
He's lifting his hand. He wants the ball. And you take a look at it. He doesn't make the pass immediately. He takes his time, assesses the options, and then decides to make the pass. This pass was for Pepe. Even though it was intercepted by his teammates, it was meant for Pepe, who was making the run on the outside. Unfortunately, it was intercepted by his own teammates. But Pepe does get onto the ball, and then Mendy makes the mistake. Now, I'd like to take us a few seconds back to see what happened here. Let's go on for a little bit. I've always complained about spaces between defenders, between centre-backs and full-backs. Look at the gap right here. That is enough space for our passing player to decide whether to go for this player or even go way beyond for Pepe. You don't allow that. As a defender, you need to create you need to cover enough space to ensure that if a pass is coming through, you can block it off, or ensure that you are close enough to make sure the pass doesn't get into a dangerous player in behind you, where the outside player has a chance to run in on your goalkeeper. And this is way too much space. If he had been here, if he had come here, if he had been a little ways here, the pass goes on the outside to Pepe, and he has enough time to turn and then mark Pepe or get on Pepe and trying to stop him from putting the ball into the box.
But I mean, just a final note, that pass came from Sebastian Haller.
Sebastian
For a
Haller.
striker, that was a very, very good pass.
It was a very, very good pass. And I mentioned on radio, I was on radio during the game, that I thought he was the most important substitution in the game. He came on, he added a bit of quality that Ivory Coast were lacking in that final third. And even this, he added some passing quality that we didn't see enough of from Ivory Coast before the penalty, before this one. And
it makes you think about his time at West Ham. And probably, because some people actually believe that he was misprofiled.
Absolutely.
At West Ham. And the same fate befell Gianluca Scamacca.
Yes.
And how many people in England didn't see his quality, but in Italy, he's a fantastic footballer.
There have been a number of players like that. I'd like to point out Joel Linton at Newcastle, who was also misprofiled as one of the big burly strikers, number 9. But this is a player who can hold on to the ball. He can compete with players. So Eddie Howe moved him fell deeper into midfield, and he's been thriving there ever since. There are so many examples you can point to. But as you said, Haller, very much misprofiled. And now he's been thriving, and what a pass really to find, initially to find Nicolas Pepe, but eventually it did get to him. And
I really think the touch, even though it was inadvertent, it kind of helped Pepe latch onto the balls, because for a moment the focus was on the player who took the touch, and all of a sudden, that's how come Mendy couldn't time it properly, because the touch gave them this pause. And I don't understand why the referee didn't see this as a penalty initially.
I guess, look, I mean,
he gave Pepe a yellow card. I was like,
exactly.
I couldn't believe my eyes.
Wow.
So the referee not seeing that was one of a few errors from the officials in the game. We didn't get the Sadio Mane tackle, but I think everyone here understands that was a straight red card, or that should have been a straight red card.
It's the star player tax,
to Sadio Mane, and there's no way that shouldn't be given as a penalty. We'll take a closer look at it, and Mendy gets a huge chunk of the attacking player. Maybe you can magnify it a bit too. Okay. That won't work, but I think everyone can see that this is a clear tackle. Mendy gets a huge chunk of the player, does not get any of the ball, and eventually justice was served. VAR intervened. Ivory Coast got their penalty, and Frank Kessie. I read up on a stat about penalties where if a player is taking a penalty in normal time and it's guaranteed that scoring would give his team a win or a draw to take it into extra time, they are successful over 80% of the time. So we were trusting Frank Kessie to prove that stat right.
I see.
There have been a few instances, I know, very famous instances where we've been proven wrong in that stat. The Black Stars can attest to that, but I think Frank Kessie got the
of course, I mean, we'll have a deeper discussion on penalties along the line. Maybe not today, but you are right about the pressure. You need to master the situation first, and then you can think of putting that, because that was a high pressure penalty.
Very high pressure.
Pressure penalty. Your country gets a second chance in an AFCON. And you have to score.
Or basically a third chance.
A third chance.
A third chance to stay in the AFCON.
If you like.
Yeah, if you hadn't scored that,
we're going to butter him.
All right. I don't know which other thing you want to.
I think we're done for the touch. Okay. We'll come back to deal with how penalties are taking, the science of penalties, and what players should do or shouldn't do when they are taking penalties.
All right. Great stuff there from Edwin Krakofi on the touchpad there. So lovely stuff from Cote d'Ivoire. My favorite part, just to wrap up on the Cote d'Ivoire episode, was I don't know what that man was telling the young lady. I'm dying.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm dying.
We found our next meme for the next few years.
Or him and meet me for the back there.
I'm dying to hear what he was telling, because
I would have been on the pitch if it weren't for my injury.
because for me, here they were, I don't know, was that 1-1 or was
that a penalty? They had won.
They won the penalty.
And then thumbs up to the camera guy who got that shot. Brilliant camera guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know which network he gets his 9 to 5 or that's it. I just love and you see, the young is the look on the young lady's face. It's a yeah.
He gives it a thumbs up. That's the worst thing ever.
This guy has gotten coach's meeting guru to get so confident.
Oh Lord. Okay, look, this is the AFCON Daily Show. Shout out again. Look, if I were in Cote d'Ivoire, I'd find that man and I'd put him on television and ask him what it is he was telling the young lady. Because I just love the image. Like, I just love how the woman is just trying to look away and just give him the thumbs up, trying to end everything very quickly. Oh man!
It's the image of everyone celebrating around him, and then he focused on.
That's it. Like,
this is his shot. He's shotting it. Like, there's no time to waste.
Alrighty, let's go. Congrats to La Côte d'Ivoire. They've won. I'm told he's an official of the Ivorian team.
You can see the tag.
But which was his? I want to find out.
See, for all you can tell, the woman sitting there, he had to pull some weight for him to be there. He needs to finish the job.
It's true.
Party after party.
It's true. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the other game. So this was played at 8 p.m. Let's go on to the game that was played at 5 p.m. It involved Mauritania and Cape Verde. Mauritania and Cape Verde. Very interesting game. Very interesting. A lot of people said they didn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed it because of the physicality of the Mauritanians. I thought they fought, only for them to be undone by a very, very horrible mistake in the end. That allowed Ryan Mendes the penalty to put the chance to score a penalty to put Cape Verde through. Let's see the highlights for those who missed it. Wow, Cape Verde making it to the last 8 of an AFCON. Wonderful story the Blue Sharks are writing there. But for the Mauritanians, sad stuff. You fight all the way to get here, and then an error allows Cape Verde the opportunity to win that game later on. It must hurt.
It was a tight contest. Yesterday we were previewing the game here, and we all expected Cape Verde to win. But I did see that the Mauritanians were going to give it a fight. They were going to give it a very good fight. You watch even the highlights, and you see, football is a game of chances. The Mauritanians were not taking their chances, same as the Cape Verdeans. They were both not taking their chances, but it always comes down to these minute things. You take your eye off the ball, and you get punished. I don't think the Mauritanians they should look at this team and be very proud of where they've gotten to. I mean, this is the first time they had not even won a game at the AFCON. This is the first time they've gotten this far. But at the end of the day, I think the better team won because Cape Verde had the upper hand. They had the better chances. They created the better chances. They had most of the ball possession. Not as entertaining as previous games. And this is what makes me sad in tournament football. Because a team can do so well in the group stages and then they get to the knockout and they are not the same side that were performing that way. Senegal is a very good example.
But you can understand it's high stakes. Mm-hmm. You don't want to give anything away. You want to stay alive for as long as possible.
But you see, it's either you are playing like the Ivorian mentality, you are giving it your best shot. I mean, this whole thing about cautious, let's be cautious.
Your best shot is staying compact, staying constant.
Staying compact is not Cape Verde's thing. They are all guns blazing. But yesterday, you could see they were a little bit cautious. And when that happens, when you get so much of the caution, you don't enjoy the game that much like you enjoy during the group stage because people know there's always a second chance, there's always a third chance. So, I mean, that's what affected the quality of that game yesterday. But at the end of the day, the best team won. And then I can't wait to see what else they would have to produce because irrespective of what happens, the way the draw is fixated, the winner, Cape Verde, faces either South Africa or Morocco. It doesn't matter who wins. I think in that next game, they are not going to be the favorites. So maybe that's what would bring out their best quality. But then this AFCON keeps... You'll be shocked the kind of teams you see in the semi-finals and the final. I predict that. It will be very shocking.
All right, Edwin Kakofi is on the touchpad. Edwin, what exactly did you pick out from this encounter? Cape Verde winning that game by 1-0.
Well, I think the major thing from the goal that Mauritania conceded is pretty obvious to everyone, but I'd like to take us all through it yet again. First of all, the passing player, we can see exactly who he is aiming for in this situation. He wants to get the ball to his teammates right here.
Okay.
But this was a very bad pass. Instead of reaching his teammates, he gets it into an area. His teammate isn't ready to run into it, so the chance seems lost. Over here, the Mauritanian defender has basically so many options. Anything, he can decide to control the ball, decide to obviously head it to his goalkeeper, or even head it back into play somewhere. That is a very dangerous option. And this is where communication is important between defenders, goalkeepers. Anyone here, his teammates right here, could have shouted at him, "There's no danger, control the ball." Anyone from here to here, even the goalkeeper himself, who has a better look of the entire field, can tell him there's no danger. Do not head it back. Do not try and control the ball. That is the best option for the defender. He tries one of the options, which was to head it back to the goalkeeper. But what he probably didn't count on was Benchimol making the run. Making the run. And that is important for a striker. At this time, 85th minute, players are tired. Everyone is exhausted. They are probably looking forward to extra time, the rest before extra time, and then maybe penalties. So many strikers wouldn't make that run. But he anticipates. He wants to get onto any sort of mistake, any chance that exists. He makes the run.
But how much blame will you put on his marker?
His marker?
Yes, his man, because he's with the defender, and then he runs past the defender.
The blame I put on them, I've already said, it's communication. Tell him there's no danger. He doesn't expect the header to go back. There's only one option there. You chest the ball, you control it, and then you deal with the consequences. His marker should accept some blame, because obviously you keep an eye on everyone you are supposed to be marking. Don't let players just run past you like that. But I don't put too much blame on him. The blame obviously completely goes on to Echelvery for this really senseless header over here. He makes the header. Benchimol gets to the ball first, and then Nias, the goalkeeper, has to make the tackle. He didn't get it right. It's one that you have to time absolutely right if you're the goalkeeper. He didn't get his timing right, and he takes out Benchimol, and there's a penalty right there. Easiest decision for.
But you see, there are two things. You see, for a striker, he's anticipating where the ball will be next.
Yes.
But a defender, as at that point, he's not really looking at his marker because there's no danger.
Yes.
And because the striker is anticipating, it gives you the difference between a defensive instinct and an attacking instinct. The defender is not anticipating where the ball would be next. He thinks there's no danger. The striker is anticipating where the ball...
So effectively Benchimol gambles.
He gambles.
So the defender is being more reactive to what would happen, and the striker is being more proactive. And so that's why, and about the penalty, see, I'll be very honest, bad timing, but I think the striker bought it. He bought that penalty because
in this game,
it's not that great. It's not that, and we're talking about Cote d'Ivoire against Equatorial Guinea and how Pepe decided to stay on his feet even though he was hacked down. The contact was not that great, but so far as he felt it, there was contact.
Very minimal contact, but there was still some contact.
There was a bit. He could have stayed on his feet, but you see, sometimes, and he's a good striker. One, being very proactive, and two, having the foresight to buy that penalty because immediately you go down in such a situation, you've tied the referee's hands. He would have to give it.
He has to give it. Interesting. And from that point, the referee makes a very easy decision.
Yeah. All Mendes had to do was put the ball in the back of the net.
And he absolutely lashed that ball into the back. I love that. That's the penalty of somebody who is 1 under pressure, and 2, not sure of where he was going to. So he takes the safest option, smash it down the middle, just like the way the great Frank Lampard would always do.
And we will talk about penalties, but you see, goalkeepers do not want to look stupid in such a moment. Take a position. So there's no way he's staying in the middle. He's definitely flying somewhere, and I think strikers know that too.
I see.
Yeah, about that penalty, about what Safo said, goalkeepers do not want to be in the position where they look stupid by not making the dive. But actually, a lot more penalties, 22%, go straight down the middle. There's twice the chance of a goalkeeper saving a penalty if they stay down the middle. But if you stay down the middle as a goalkeeper, you are seen as not having done anything. Goalkeepers who dive escape a lot of the blame. If you stay still, there's blame to you that why didn't you make a dive? Why didn't you go here? Why didn't you go here? Okay. And that is why goalkeepers do not make the dive in those situations.
All right, interesting stuff there. This is the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. My name is Nathan Kwame Safo and Edwin Kwakofi are my wingmen. We'll take a very quick break. When we come back, we look ahead to the remaining games in the round of 16. Very interesting games, very interesting history, and some very potentially exciting ties to be played later today in the AFCON competition in Cote d'Ivoire. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. My name is Nathan Kwame. Show is proudly sponsored by Bet Power. Bet Power is where you go to get the best odds, the biggest winnings, biggest payouts. And if you want to enjoy a great betting experience, then Bet Power is your number one option. They are proud sponsors of this show. We thank them so much for coming through for us. If you want to send us your messages, there's a WhatsApp number on your screen. Please send your WhatsApp messages to that particular number. We'll try and go through more of those messages as the show goes on. My guests are still here, Kwame Safo and Edwin Kwakofi. Let's go back to the penalty shootout, really, between Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal. Cote d'Ivoire winning by 5-4. And we'll just run through the kicks, talk about quality of kicks, what you should or should not do in a penalty shootout, because once we are in the knockout stages of an AFCON, there is the likelihood another penalty shootout will come up or happen. We've already had one between DR Congo and Egypt. DR Congo won that by 8-7. We've had Cote d'Ivoire beating Senegal by 5-4, and a lot more could happen. We could have some in today's games, Burkina Faso, Mali. We could have South Africa, Morocco. We could even have a shootout in the quarters, semis, finals, third place. You never know. A penalty shootout will take place. Edwin Kwakofi is on the touch part. Edwin, so what are some of the things you want to highlight as the two teams, Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal, went at it in the shootout?
Look, penalties are a science, as I've already said. And if you want to boost your chances, there are a few things as a team or players or goalkeeper you can do to ensure that you win the penalty shootout. Usually, if the first thing you can do is, obviously, when you win the toss,
go first.
What you do is 60% of the time, or over 60% of the time, the team that goes first usually wins the penalty shootout. Obviously, this is an exception. This is one of those 40% of times. That's because it puts pressure on the player that is taking the penalty second. Yeah. They know the consequences of possibly missing their penalty. So stress levels increase. They become a little nervous, and then they miss their penalty usually. But in certain circumstances, the team that takes second wins as well. One thing you need to do as a player, when you are taking a penalty, you do not look at the goalkeeper. Do not focus on the goalkeeper unless you are an expert penalty taker. You do not look at the goalkeeper. You looking at the goalkeeper, it increases the nerves, because you know what you are facing. The antics might get to you. And then
I could see Edouard Mendy bopping on the line.
Exactly. If you see a goalkeeper covering, especially large goalkeepers, covering the space by their movements, you tend to wonder, where should I put it? Should I change my initial decision? Should I decide to put it somewhere else? Because that's a huge goalkeeper. They can reach a lot of places. So that's where the doubt
in his pump. I mean, when he stands and opens his arm wide, it's almost like he's covered the goalpost. And there were times when he would hit the crossbar, shake the crossbar just to put
the kicker off. And we can see antics. Goalkeepers like to do that to put you off. Koulibaly, when he was approaching, he looked at the ball and he stayed looking at the ball for quite a little bit to ensure that he didn't focus on the goalkeeper's actions. Then you put in mind where you are going to place the penalty kick. You do not change your decision at the last minute for whatever reason. Do not change your decision. And as I said before, a lot of penalties go straight down the middle. Players, that is where a lot of players like to go just to be safe. Go down the middle because they know goalkeepers will dive. The goalkeeper wants to appear like they are doing something, which is why they dive for penalties. Even though penalties are twice as likely to be saved if the goalkeeper stays down the middle. In this case, Koulibaly, obviously you have to put a lot of power into your effort. And he goes down the middle, straight down the middle. The goalkeeper dives. If the goalkeeper had stayed in their position, there was a likelihood of him getting that shot.
Okay.
Straight down the middle. And obviously he scores. So another thing, you go high if you are a player. If you know how to take penalties, going high is the best penalty option to take.
Yeah.
Higher reward, but also higher risk.
Yes.
Because you are slightly off, it goes over the bar, it hits the crossbar.
Reminds me
then it hits
of
the
two
post.
penalties. One from the 2008 Champions League final. Man United's Owen Hargreaves hits it into what they call the postage stamp, the top corner. Absolutely kills that penalty and scores it.
Risky.
Very risky penalty, but he scores it. And then in the AFCON final of 2012, Gervinho, I don't know how many people remember that
missed
clip.
this.
Gervinho missed it. He didn't even want to take one at all.
But almost everybody had to take.
Everybody had to take. Now, as soon as Gervinho kicks the ball, so he displaces the goalkeeper. He wants to go high, but kicks it wrongly. And when you watch the replay and like you watch from his perspective, as soon as he kicks it, he could almost tell that, oh no.
That's
so the
going
penalty
wide.
starts to fly and he holds his head, and it was sheer agony for him. He went through a lot of torture. I remember his house in Cote d'Ivoire got burnt because of that penalty.
And he didn't even
take
the
one in the 2015 final. He sat
on
with his
the
back
plastic
turned to
chair.
the shootout, not wanting
You couldn't look at what
to
is
get
going
him
on.
up. Anyway, let's
But you
move
see,
on.
the risky thing about taking it down the middle is even if the keeper moves a direction, this one he kicked it on the left side of the goalkeeper, and the keeper dived right, so he displayed. If the keeper was going on the left, it's in the middle.
Yes.
The keeper didn't stay; he went down the middle, and the keeper has long hands.
Of course,
the fact that he sees the ball as he's leaving, and he could save that. So
Or
it's
with his
very
feet,
risky.
some keepers,
If you
even
go
though
low,
the upper
with
part
feet,
of their body will
good.
move, they can leave a bit of their
And you
their
see
feet
one
stretched
of
out.
the penalties that Mendy sees the ball going, but he tries to get it with his hand.
Exactly.
So it's also a very risky thing.
All right. Anyway.
So this Pepe penalty, first thing I want to highlight is focus. He is not looking at the goalkeeper, looking straight at the ball. Obviously knows where he's going to put the ball. It ends up going low. And those are the risky penalties, but when you get it right, brilliant penalty. It's not being saved because it's right in either corner. And you get it, you get your...
I just want to ask, now his body position, if you are a goalkeeper, I think his body position almost sells where
you kick it.
he's likely to put it. Because it will be a little awkward for him to look that way and whip it down Mendy's left. Or, I mean, okay, when you look at it this way, it doesn't look as glaring.
It doesn't look as glaring. But you can tell that Mendy has done his homework. He is edging towards this side of the goal because maybe he knows where Pepe likes to put his penalties. Maybe he studied the body language. Maybe he knows that this is a better angle for a left-footed player. So he's edging towards that side of the goal. You know he's going to dive there. But that's where the quality of the player comes in. You put it right into the corner of the net, and the goalkeeper basically has no chance. We speed it up so we can get to the penalty.
No, you see,
and it's right in the corner.
Let me highlight something. First of all, a player like Pepe, it's not hard getting data on Pepe's
he
penalties.
Hasn't scored a lot of them anyway.
Yes, but if I'm a researcher on the Senegalese team and I'm searching for where they like, if a player like Pepe, I can easily get maybe from his days in Arsenal, I mean, they are on the internet. They are not as hard as getting other players. But so once you know where he's taking it, I don't know if you remember Daniel J. under 20 World Cup penalties. Yeah. As a goalkeeper, if you are sure he's taking it on your right,
yes.
First thing you do, first thing you do as a goalkeeper is you move one before you dive.
Yes.
Watch all the penalties. Mendy just dives straight from the middle.
He doesn't give him.
He doesn't give one before he dives. You will get the direction, but you are not going to get the ball. And that's what I thought was the fundamental problem with Mendy throughout the spot kick. He just dives straight from the middle. He never gave himself. You see, Daniel J in the under 20 World Cup could go 1, 2, 3. I'm like, Nana Tobo, where are you going so much? And he cut it because it gives you you can get to the far end of the post. So he didn't do that throughout the penalty.
But just a final thing though, run it and I'll point out something there. The slight stutter. The slight stutter by Pepe. I also think that gives him a slight bit of an advantage.
Slow down so we can see it.
I don't know if you can see it. Okay, we've slowed it down. Just run the tape. I'll point out something. So now he's about to go. So he hops, one, and then
he starts before he takes the kick.
The starter. Interesting.
But the main thing is, if you have picked a spot, stay committed to that spot. Give yourself an advantage to that spot. Because I feel if he had gone one before he dived, he was saving that penalty.
All right. So the Ivorians successful on at that point. I don't know which of the kicks.
And then we go to Pap Matar.
Yes.
For
Tottenham Hotspur's Pap Matar.
For Senegal and Tottenham Hotspur. We play the kick straight forward. The goalkeeper has a position. He knows where he's going. Yeah. He goes straight down the middle in spite of the goalkeeper's antics. And he goes high.
Do you know what the Ivorian keeper reminds me of Richard Kinsey? He just throws himself everywhere. Doesn't catch anymore. He'll just throw himself.
So the science about penalties is if you are going, you go high. It makes it the shots more difficult for the goalkeepers to save because high they can't reach it. Sometimes they can't reach it. As we said, the higher the reward, the higher the risk as well.
Yep.
This time he goes straight and goes high. As we've been saying, if the goalkeepers stand straight, there's a higher chance of them saving the penalties.
But they are almost always never going to stand.
They are almost always never going to stand. And the risk is if you stand straight too much as a goalkeeper, you tell the offensive player that what you are doing, your strategy. You know that they know that you're going to stand straight all the time. So now they start picking random directions, and then as a goalkeeper, your strategy is done in that case. The next penalty we are going to, the Ivory Coast, Kwame. He comes forward. And one other thing that players do is that players should not do is that when you put the ball on the penalty spot, do not turn away from the goalkeeper as you are walking your distance. Do not turn away. If you do, immediately the goalkeeper senses some nervousness. The goalkeeper senses some possibly agitation. So they are even readier for your penalty. If you turn away, you look at the crowd on the far side. You look at the players who are expectant, your teammates who are expectant. Look at the opposition players who are waiting for you to miss. It creates so many scenarios in your head that you can't deal with it. If you are taking a penalty, you put the ball down. Either look straight at the ball. Look, if you are confident in yourself, you can look at where the goal. Do not look at the goalkeeper. Just look at the goal. Look above the goal. Look at anything that will make you comfortable except the goalkeeper.
Okay.
So in this case, Kwame, who is taking for the Ivory Coast. And one thing I found out as well about goalkeepers, more penalties are saved by goalkeepers who are either wearing red or yellow.
Wow.
Now, where did that one come from?
That's a really funny stat that I pulled up from some research that was done. Okay. 199 penalties from the Bundesliga. More penalties were saved by goalkeepers who were either wearing red or yellow. Fewer penalties were saved by goalkeepers who were wearing green or blue.
I see.
Yeah, so
So the
that's
goalkeeper is in red or yellow.
red or yellow.
He
right
could
colours.
actually save that. I'm sure there's a psychological.
Yeah, there's probably a psychological reason why red or yellow tends to evoke fear in penalty kickers.
Bright colors.
Bright colours.
Your
Yeah,
face.
blue and green is the. It's not a go-to if you're a goalkeeper.
Lily likes
in a
wearing
penalty
brown.
shootout.
All right.
So Kwame is ready for his penalty. Looks very, very confident. And then
Again,
goes slow.
He gets the direction. He
Mendy
doesn't
gets
give
the
himself
direction
that
right,
advantage.
but as Kwame Safo said, he doesn't take the extra step to give himself a good advantage. We move on to the miss for Senegal,
Yes.
and that comes from Niakate.
Niakate.
But just to chip in, he said something about fear and agitation. I don't know if you remember the game of Morocco versus Congo. Before Christopher Bakambu took the penalty, when he was placing the ball down, you could see his hands shaking.
Cedric Bakambu.
You could see his hands shaking. You could see that this guy is scared. And he missed the penalty because, like I'm saying, you need to be very confident, know your spots. If you know what you are doing, you don't shake as a professional player.
The pressure.
And it wasn't even a pressure kick. I mean, they were trailing, but it wasn't. The pressure is not as much as this kick. If you're shaking that much, it's good. He didn't even take any of the penalties against Egypt. I don't know what he would have done.
Well, something I would like to point out about this Niakate penalty. Look at his demeanor. He's already showing signs of nervousness. If you're a player taking a penalty, always decide where you are going to look. If it's at the ball, you stay with the ball. If it's at the goal or the fans, you stay there. You do not switch in between. It's a sign of nervousness because your eyes become very shifty. So the goalkeeper picks up on that immediately. You look up, you look down, you look everywhere, and then there's already that nervousness coming in there. So the chances of you missing are increased significantly with such a movement. His run-up is very slow initially, and then he hits the post with his effort. That is the risk with going high. You go high or you go too wide, you tend to miss the goal or you hit the post, depending on how wide your shot is. So Niakate with...
It reminds me of a penalty that, let me go back into my memory bank. Euro 2004, Philip Cocu missed a similar penalty. It was Holland, Sweden. I think it's one of the only shootouts the Netherlands have won in their history. Because they have a horrible... Now, penalty. In international football, England and the Netherlands and Ghana. 3 countries with very pathetic penalty-taking records. But that night, I remember, and the Dutch won that shootout. And Cocu missed a kick, just like this left-footed kick hits the bar.
I feel like, he juxtaposed that to Kwame. You could see there was power and he was going for... But with Niakate's own, it's like he's kind of curling the ball out
and in.
That's very risky.
Very risky.
Because if you pick your spot... You know when we used to play football, there was this thing called agon. Wham the ball. It's like, but if you try to finesse it a little bit, it's very, very risky.
And I think the distance is even too short to try and add a curl on it for it to
because there was
go
a bit of curl to it. I mean...
it just didn't happen.
So
at this point,
Senegal... the Ivory Coast have a chance to take the lead in the shootout. And they put Seb Haller in on goal. Mendy, of course, trying to put him off with his movement. And there's some focus with Seb Haller. He goes high, he goes wide. Mendy doesn't move, which, as we said, is probably the right decision.
Yeah,
but in this case, there's
imagine you try a Panenka. You will look so silly because the keeper doesn't move. You just try and he saves it.
Exactly. Right. Our next penalty is Dieng for Senegal.
Yes, Bamba Dieng. He was a second half late substitute. I don't know why. I mean, I felt maybe Ali Cisse could have introduced him earlier.
I didn't see the Nicolas Jackson.
I think Nicolas Jackson didn't give the Senegalese some trust. Yeah. Of course, he could hold the ball well. Great footwork, but I thought they needed something extra.
There's always something you can do to calm yourself as a footballer. Dieng himself has picked chewing gum. And chewing gum might not seem like much, but it calms a lot of your nerves. As a manager, Alex Ferguson used to chew gum. You are advised that if you are nervous on a plane, chew gum. It helps settle your nerves. And Dieng has decided that's his go-to for his penalty shootout. cool, calm, settles nerves, and you are able to take a good penalty. Ends up in the corner of the net, and goalkeeper almost saves, but he doesn't reach it.
Why? I left that penalty shootout not being convinced by Fofana and Mendy. And my worry is that should Cote d'Ivoire get into another shootout, Fofana might not
you
be
don't
useful
count
to
on
them.
Fofana was a...
Because I see that, and I was telling you this, that with Fofana, I think he looks at the ball before he dives. As a goalkeeper, you are not going to see, unless it is in the middle. Because if you look at where if the ball is already traveling, by the time you dive, the ball is already gone. So I think that's what he was doing. And
okay.
was not helpful.
So this is Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah, so
That's surgery.
as you said, you can get the position right. Going high, going wide, it increases your chances of scoring the penalty, even if the goalkeeper gets a hand on it. Usually they're not able to get a strong hand on the ball because of how far they've had to dive. And this is a similar situation. Sergio Aurier against Edouard Mendy. You've gone through the motions. Sergio Aurier is obviously going high. He takes, I don't know if we saw that, he took a look at the corner where he was targeting, which might have given the goalkeeper an indication of where he was going. So he got the dive right. But once you hit it wide and high enough, it's always difficult for the goalkeeper to get a good hand on it in such positions.
I think he touched it a bit.
He touched it a bit, but you would usually expect Mendy to maybe make the save in such a situation, but you can't fault him too much.
This is one of the cases, if he went down, Mendy would have saved it.
Yes.
Oh, so you think that if he had tried going down, Mendy was saving that? Wow, interesting.
Our next penalty.
You talk about eye contact, and I don't think there's any player who could do it better than Eden Hazard. Yeah, looking at one side and putting it down the other.
Look, there are some players who are very special. Some players who know the art of penalties. They can stare the goalkeeper down right in the face and then go the opposite side because that's how good they are. But for the average penalty taker, do not try it. It just puts a lot of fear in you, looking straight at the goalkeeper. Then you tend to make different decisions that you ordinarily wouldn't make. Sadio Mane is a fantastic penalty taker, by the way. So you wouldn't question his decisions, where he decides to look. And, sorry, let me take you back a little bit. At this stage, it might look as though he is looking at the goalkeeper. He is not. Look at the direction of his eyeballs. He's not looking at the goalkeeper. Even he has noticed that look somewhere else other than the goalkeeper, straight at the goalkeeper, if you are going to take a penalty. So he does, and he takes it high and straight down the middle yet again. That is the perfect place for high-pressure penalties. Salah, Frank Lampard. We've seen at this tournament, even Persital tried it. It was way over. You go down the middle hard, and then you, in those sort of penalty situations. Now we come to our final penalty from Kessie for the Ivory Coast. Let's go. He comes up. At this stage, he probably has too confidence in his ability, but he's already shown that he is a proper penalty taker. Taking one in regulation time, and now he's taking it again in the penalty shootout. One stat I found pretty interesting when I was doing my research on this was that when players take penalties in knockouts time, the possibility of them scoring is above 85%.
Okay.
In the regular time, possibility of them scoring is above 85%. When they take a penalty again in the penalty shootout, it drastically drops to 72% because they understand that there's a lot more risk in the penalty shootout where they probably might end their team's hopes. So Frank Kessie is under a lot of pressure, not just because he's taking the final penalty that will give his side the win, but also home fans, there are lots of circumstances that could affect him. But another stat I found was that if a player is taking a winning penalty, a penalty that would give his team the win, the success rate is 90%, over 90%.
Oh, okay.
If they are taking a penalty that is probably will lose their team the shootout, it drops to 60%. So in this situation, Kessie might have a lot of things going against him, but there's also advantages. Winning penalty, he scores, he wins it for his team. It's because players do not want to face the negative stories or negative questions that will arise from them missing the losing penalty. If you miss a penalty that's going to give your team the win, you can afford to do that because your team has another chance to get that win. So, advantage for Franck Kessié. What does he do? High pressure penalty. He goes almost straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Mendy stays in the middle, but can't get his arm up quickly enough.
The problem was
yes, the problem.
Mendy tried moving to a direction. If you can slow it,
let's slow it even more.
He moves to his right a bit.
Okay.
And that's what I think threw him off. If he had stayed, but you see, even these kind of penalties, I remember Frank Lampard, Neuer stayed in the middle, but the power with which it was coming, you don't see him lose. You see, he dives to his,
and then
he dived.
No, he was going to his.
He crouches. You can see that he kind of crouches, almost preparing to dive and realize that the kick is going this way.
Yeah.
And then he tries to react. But Kessié hits it with a lot of pace.
A lot of pace, a lot of power, which is very important when you're taking such high pressure penalties.
Interesting. Let's have a look at a very interesting graphic or some data shared by penalty expert. I call him that, Ben Littleton, author of the book 12 Yards, The Art and Science of Taking the Perfect, the Art and Psychology of the Perfect Penalty. Now, he's done his way. He loves penalties, and he shared some very interesting data. Now, he has split the goalpost into zones 1 to 8. Okay, now zones 8, 5, 1, and 4 are the extreme ends. Now, zone 1, 149 percent, if you like, save 33%, make 6%. Okay, so 149 penalties in his research have been scored in zone 1. Saved 33 penalties have been saved in zone 2, missed in zone 3. Now check zone 2. Zone 2 is 28 penalties have been scored, 20 saved, none missed. So,
scoring.
You know, but you see.
So if you go directly under the goalkeeper where they might not be able to bend down,
or around
their legs, it's much more difficult for them
to save. And so we see zones 7, 6, 2, and 3. Those zones, they give you the highest percentages, except, of course, next to zone 5. Check zone 5. Percentage of goals, 92.9%. That's crazy. That's a lot. Okay, so players who have missed while attempting to put a penalty in zone 5, they've just missed 2. 26 have been scored. So this was in 2021. This was when this research was done, right? So it just tells you the most profitable parts of the goal. But of course, there are some that are very, very, very risky. Very, very, very risky. But yeah, just tells you 90.
So the most goals have been scored.
So for example, Franck Kessié's penalty, you can say it's a zone 6 penalty.
Or Nicolas Pepe is a zone 1
zone 1 penalty.
Because it's down and to the right side of the goalkeeper.
Yes, right side or he's towards his left. Yes, but the goalkeeper is right. And then if you look at zone 2 and 3, players don't miss those ones.
Yes, they
don't. Zones 2 and
3. They don't miss. Straight at goal.
They don't miss at all. Even though, for example, zone 2, 20 times they have been saved.
Okay,
28 goals have been scored. Yeah. While zone 3, 24 have been scored. 12 have been saved. But players don't miss. So I don't know what they mean by miss. Whether they send the kicks wide. Or so over the bar. That's not happening. But the most dangerous part in terms of the misses, like we said, zones 8 and 1 and zones 5 and 4. Those are the extreme ends.
You can see that the save percentage drops the higher the penalty is. So you look at zone 8, saved penalties only 3. Zone 7, saved penalties just 1. Zone 6, saved penalties 3. And then zone 5, save penalties 0. So the higher the penalty is,
but of course, zone 1 has 33 saved, which is a lot. And then zone 4, 29 saved.
Yes.
So the bottom extreme,
the
extreme bottom parts are the parts where the most goals have been scored, but the most saves have been done. And that's very logical. The keepers are diving towards those ends. So very interesting data for viewers to chew on. So I think, you can, have a look and just have it in your mind when you watch football games and penalties. Try to now imagine the zones and figure out whether your favorite player can put the ball away with regular ease. Interesting stuff.
Very interesting.
All right, let's move on to today's game. So yesterday's games have been played. Like John Barfoot said, people are running on 2 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep in Côte d'Ivoire. I don't think anybody will do anything productive today in Côte d'Ivoire. But yeah, there you have it. These 2 games, 5 p.m. Mali, Burkina Faso, 8 p.m. is Morocco, South Africa. The 5 p.m. game is happening at Korogo, at Amadou Koulibaly Stadium, and then San Pedro. That's where the next game, the 8 p.m. game, will take place. Morocco versus South Africa at the Laurent Pokou Stadium.
Tasty games. I mean, today's games are really tasty.
Really tasty.
Can't wait. I can't wait for 5
All
p.m.
right, let's the 5 p.m. game is Burkina Faso, Mali.
This excitement over knockout games is something we've not had in Ghana for a very long time, right? not since 2019, was it?
Yeah.
Against Tunisia.
I think I'm enjoying myself in this AFCON. I don't think I'm dependent on the Black Stars to give me joy anymore. I said that after the game, like, I don't depend on them. If you enjoy football, you enjoy them.
This has been a good
it's been a good tournament. I look at, especially the 8 p.m. for people like me who like to watch the pre-game analysis on Super Sports. They don't hide their bias. They are a South African group of people.
Yes.
I would want to hear what they have to say. So by 7 you are by the TV.
Let's pick the 2 games one after. Let's start off with that first one. Mali and Burkina Faso. We saw. I don't know. A lot of people think about Mali, rightly so, as a team that's on the up. On the continent. Now their squad looks more exquisite. It looks more recognizable. It has a good international feel about it. And then they have the Burkinabés themselves, who also have their own little success story. I saw them, was it 2 years ago, involved in this crazy penalty shootout. They had their goalkeeper doing the somersaults afterwards. But anyway, let me start off with you. Mali, just looking at how far they've come as a team, a lot of people think that this is a competition where they need to show out or show off, if you like do well. But they've got to take on Burkina Faso, who are very stubborn.
They are very stubborn, 2 very physical teams. And for Mali, there's a lot of pressure on them, even more pressure than there is on Burkina Faso. You consider Mali more of always the bridegrooms and never the bride. That's the story that's followed Mali at these international tournaments. They consistently finish as the 3rd place, 4th place, very far into the competition without actually winning it. And you always look at their squad and think this is a squad that should be getting somewhere good. They always play very, very good football and are always considered one of the dark horses, but they finished 2nd only once at the AFCON, finished 3rd 4 times, finished 4th 5 times. So there's this narrative that Mali isn't a team that can get to the ultimate score, and this might be their best opportunity. Senegal out, the big guns aren't playing very good football. They seem to have a decent path ahead of them. Even if they win this one, they are facing the Ivory Coast, who are not in the best of form. They might have home advantage, but who knows? They will look at this bracket and think, this might be our time, finally be our time. But as you said, they have to get past a very stubborn Burkina Faso team. And I think Mali have played some really good football so far at the tournament. The win over South Africa was very impressive, especially the second half. I like the way they defended very well in the first half. I think they were a little more porous than they would like to have been in that first half. But they held on, and then they took over in the second half and won pretty easily. In the subsequent games against Namibia and against Tunisia, I thought they were equally as good. Yeah.
I think they drew goalless with Namibia.
But in terms of play, they were really good. Okay. They may not have scored the goals that you expected to score as Mali, or with the chances they got in that game against Namibia. But in terms of actual football, in terms of passing play, in terms of ball progression, I thought they were very fantastic in the group stages. Will they be able to carry that along into the round of 16? I've seen, especially from yesterday's game, that success in the group stages does not equal success in the round of 16. This is where teams step up in the tournament, when, even though they've not had a good group stages. And Burkina Faso, they've been quite shaky. They were quite shaky in the group stages. The win over Mauritania was decent, but I thought Mauritania gave them more of a game than they would have wanted. They scraped through that. In the subsequent games, they weren't as impressive. They enjoyed a good game against Algeria, but Algeria themselves were not at their best. Them not getting 3 points was very surprising in that instance. So you are looking at two teams who have had decent amounts of success already in the tournament, but see themselves as teams that can go extra levels, that can give something extra in the tournament. And if you look at them player for player, Mali stand as favourites in this game. You wouldn't count against them, given the football I've seen them play, but they shouldn't go into this game trying to underestimate Burkina Faso. Otherwise, just like Senegal, they might be beating.
Kwame.
I mean, I disagree, because I think both Mali and Burkina Faso have been underwhelming at this tournament. Very underwhelming. I mean, Mali showed up in the South African game, showed up in the first half against Tunisia and disappeared. I think for the quality they possess, they should be the ones with these untouchable 9-pointers in the group stage. As to how they drew against Namibia still is a mystery to me, because Namibia is porous, is very bad defensively, and they were exposed by Angola, a team that beat Burkina Faso 2-0. And the same with Burkina Faso. When you look at Burkina Faso's group, before this tournament started, your favorites would have been Algeria, Burkina Faso, to be the first and second in this group, but both teams were underwhelming. I mean, Burkina Faso needed this miraculous penalty to beat Mauritania. Then they drew against Algeria and lost 2-0 to Angola. So Burkina Faso, for the players they possess, Tapsoba, Issa Kabore, Bertrand Traore, for the players they possess, they are not hitting their peak. But like we see, the group stages are very different from the from the knockout phases. So, and they are very similar teams in physicality. Very physical team. But I think
it concerns me that
we might not have an enjoy. But I think the Malians are technically more superior and technically better than the Burkina Faso team. And I think for the investment Mali have put into their football, the amount of time they've come close, even the years in which they hosted in, I think, was it 2002? This is the time where they should take the bull by the horn, because yet again, Cote d'Ivoire have done everybody in that slot a favor by taking out Senegal. Because had Senegal gone through, I'm sure they were going all the way to the final, because now in that bracket you have Congo, you have Equatorial Guinea. I think Guinea beat Equatorial. So you have Congo, you have Guinea, then you have Cote d'Ivoire now. So there's that bracket is very easy if you do apply yourself. I expect them to beat Burkina Faso, because Burkina Faso are not showing up. But then that's the thing again about Burkina Faso. They don't need to show up for you in the group stage. They just need to come and, we are the underdogs, and thrive under that spell of underdogs to do well. But at the end of the day, the kind of football, there's so much potential in the Malian team, and I think they are going to do well. They are the big dogs in this game, and I expect them to win that game.
Guys, you've highlighted that second half. The Malians played against South Africa, where they were very classy, picked the South Africans off, and all of that. What would it take for that kind of performance to be played across two halves and possibly an extra time to get rid of the Burkinabes?
What would it take? They need to understand the power of their physicality. I know, you need to understand how important it is to impose yourself right from the start. I felt that they gave the South Africans a lot of space, a lot of leeway in that first half, allowed them to play their game without giving them going into those 50-50 challenges, without putting players on players, man on man. They decided to give them a back off, allow them space to operate in. And South Africa almost took their chances. The penalty miss was one of them, obviously. But also, there were a couple of chances where they walked almost right through that Malian midfield without any challenges and then got a few chances to score. They didn't take them, and they paid for it in the second half. In the second half, I thought that Mali did a good job of putting their players on the South Africans, making sure they didn't get any space to in the midfield to turn around and find a pass. Players who were very influential in that first half for South Africa were finding it difficult to get space to make those passes as they were in the first half. They also took advantage of their set-piece opportunities, which is very important, by the way. The second goal was from a free kick that hit the bar, but you found out that their players were switched on even after the free kick had been taken.
Okay.
And that's another thing, concentration in certain moments. The first goal, standard first goal. Second goal, concentration from the player who held his run, and then tapped the ball into the back of the net. The third one as well, from I think Sinayoko, who scored the third goal for Mali. He realized that in terms of physique, in terms of physicality, he could challenge or match up to the South African defender, and he went in for the tackle. Some others might just sit back and allow the South African defender to pass back to the goalkeeper or clear it. But he decided to challenge for the ball, and he got it. You need to have your players switched on for a significant amount of time, even in those key moments. Okay. They may not have to run around for 90 minutes, but you, as a player or a striker or a midfielder, you identify the key players. You should be intelligent enough to identify key moments in which you exert yourself. And I'd like to point out one player, Victor Osimhen. I think he's a clear example of that. He identified points in the game where he has to sprint, give 100%, but there are points in the game where you find him relaxing quite a bit, maybe strolling back from the front of the pitch to midfield just to join in the play. But there are moments where he gives 100%. He's sprinting after defenders, sprinting after balls, just going, challenging defenders full force. And you find that he is almost never exhausted after 90 minutes. He can still give you quite a bit. And that is the approach basically Mali and also Burkina Faso, if they are to keep up with Mali, need to approach this game with.
All right, we'll see. Mali versus Burkina Faso. Very, very interesting game there. The locals will have a bit of a stake in this because the Ivorians will have a very interesting relationship with the Burkinabés and the Malians. So we'll see how it will play out in that game. The 8 p.m. game is between Morocco and South Africa. Two teams that have a very interesting history in terms of the fixture. This fixture, each team has won about 3 times or so. But we speak about teams that haven't, exploded. And the Moroccans are guilty party number 1. Everybody believes that this is the AFCON. This is the time to do well. But they really, really haven't excited all of us.
I said this before, that it will not be the AFCON. And let's see, in previous AFCONs, Morocco are untouchable in the group stages. And then they go make a mess of themselves in the knockout stages. And mind you, the South African team, they really know these Moroccans because they were in the same group for the AFCON qualifiers. South Africa beat them 2-1 in South Africa. I think Morocco also beat them 2-1 in Morocco. So they know each other very well. But the thing is this, it doesn't matter who is the favorite. South Africa have played some good football, which we must admit. And it comes from the telepathy and the fact that, like we see, their Sundowns are next. They play each other a lot. I look at Morocco and I clearly remember their game against Congo. They took the lead and they were just, that was it. They were just a mess of themselves. And at the same time, I cast my mind back to 2019. Egypt were very good, untouchable. Then they go meet South Africa in Egypt and South Africa knocks them out. So you can never figure it out as to what is going to happen. You look at the North African teams. Algeria is out. Tunisia is out. Egypt is out. Morocco seems to be the only North African team standing or left in this tournament. And that's what makes the fixture a very interesting one, because when Morocco are able to switch on and play good football, they are very deadly. But as to whether they would have the ability to do that is another question, because South Africa has already played another North African side in Tunisia, so they would know all about them. And it will come to the fact that I don't think South Africa is a bad team, even in their game against Mali. I think they dug their own grave for them because they had the opportunity to win that game or take the lead in that game and they missed that penalty and their heads were down, and that's what allowed Mali to play their game because the South Africans psychologically they were down. But the way they've been able to recover from that, winning 4-0 against Namibia and being able to even draw against Tunisia in a match where Tunisia needed the point. South Africa didn't need that point in that game, but they were able to draw and see themselves through. I think they will give Morocco a very big challenge than the Moroccans would expect.
Aaron, if you are Morocco, how do you think of this encounter? Open up, gung-ho, or you manage it as you go along, knowing that the South Africans can play on the break?
Look, I think that might be why Morocco are a little bit underwhelming so far.
It's because now they are the team that has to chase the opposition. They are the team
that has to chase the opposition. In the World Cup, they were the underdogs for much of that World Cup. And they were comfortable sitting back, taking those 1-2 opportunities that they get, and then sitting back and being compact. If you want to talk about teamwork, this Moroccan team does a lot of it. They defend together, they attack together, they are very compact in defense, very solid. But now they've come to the AFCON, everyone expects them to be the imposers. Everyone expects them to be the dominant squad. And they are finding that reputation difficult to maintain. If they take the lead, they relax because that is what they are used to. That's the DNA of their side. They are used to relaxing and defending instead. And when it comes to teams on the African continent, when they sense that's you slacking, they immediately attack. DR Congo did it in the second game. In the first game, I've always said this, very lucky to beat Tanzania because of that red card. In the third game, very lucky as well. So they come into this game against a South African side that has played some very good football that can cut you open. And we are not used to seeing African teams being this good technically. Usually it's a lot of strength, a lot of physicality. But this South African team has some really good technical players who can find the pass in between the defenders, who have the pace to run in beyond the players, and who can finish from very varied areas on the pitch. So Morocco have a lot to deal with. As a team that is as stacked as Morocco, you should be expecting them to boss games. That is what you'd expect from a team that has Hakim Ziyech, that has El Nesri up front, that has Hakimi on the right-hand side, even the Amrabat, even the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper is regarded as one of the best in the world. So you have a really balanced team from defense all the way to attack. This creates the perfect foundation for you to dominate games. Sofiane Amrabat was quite impressive the first couple of games. I thought in the third game, I didn't see much of that. I thought he was swamped in that midfield. He plays a very important role in that Moroccan midfield, not just because he is the line of defense in front of the back four, but also in terms of going forward. He's the one who is tasked with the responsibility of moving the ball quickly into offensive positions, moving it to offensive players. I don't think he's played that role effectively enough at the competition. In terms of his defensive role, I think he's been solid, putting in tackles, clearances, blocks. That is fine. But going forward, you need the quick passes, and he dwells too much on the ball for a player who is tasked with moving the ball quickly enough for Morocco to get into offensive positions. If you don't move balls quickly enough, it allows the opposition to get back into a place where their defense is settled, the midfield is settled, so more players for you to beat in order to create chances. And that has been a problem for Morocco in this tournament. Chance creation has been at a premium. They are not getting the chances that you would expect from a top quality side. Senegal goes into games, they create 6 chances. Nigeria goes into games, you see that there's a lot of chance creation. Even Egypt, before they were knocked out, there were lots of chances that they missed.
You're right, but the Moroccans, they haven't created a lot.
They haven't created.
What do you think it's been down to?
As I said, they move the ball a little too laboriously. If you are a top team, you need to move it as quickly as possible. There should be a lot of one-touch passes. At least there should be some sequences within the game where there are one-touch passes. players take just 3 passes to move from defense to attack. But you find the Moroccans taking 5, 6 sideways passes, backwards passes, before it even gets to the offensive players up front, before it gets to Buffal, before it gets to Hakim Ziyech. And you can't afford to do that.
And it's not like they lack the quality.
They don't.
Because against Tanzania, remember the goal Unahi scored?
Yeah.
One of my favorite goals of the competition. Quick passes to set that chance. And then you wonder why they are not moving the ball quick enough.
I mean, I think there's also a lot of focus on defensive solidity. I think they are Senegal. They are the other team who has conceded less in this tournament. I think they've conceded just a goal. So in as much as they can go or gung-ho attacking, they are very mindful about keeping their shape, being very compact. And I think that's one thing that has really affected them. But like Edwin said, the problem is, it reminds me of this Chelsea team or this Barcelona. They just want to keep possession of the ball, play defensive football, hold on to the ball for a longer period than really creating a lot of chances. And that would have to change because teams allow them to have the ball because you are the big gun in this. And when they are playing a team like South Africa, you'd be allowed to have the ball. But the thing is, when these teams get the ball, it's about how quick the transition is. You have players like Temba Zwane, they have Percy Tau, who are very quick when it comes to attacking. So that might be their Achilles heel, and that might be something that's good about them. But like Edwin said, it's not about possessing the ball. It's about doing something meaningful with the ball. They also face the Southern African team. I just realized how these people are very similar. They also face the Southern African team in Zambia. And even with that game, after getting that one goal from Ziyech, it was basically that's it.
Morocco's played, I can say, 2 halves and a half, if you like, of good football. The first game against Tanzania, of course, mitigating factor, red card. And then that first half against Zambia. Or DR Congo, if you like. And that's it, really.
So you see, the thing, and yesterday has taught us that by scoring the first goal and scoring early doesn't mean anything in the knockout stages.
Morocco themselves have experienced it.
You
they
have
took
to
the lead
see
against
it through. You always have to see it through. And that's been my disappointment because this AFCON could have easily shaped up to be a Senegal-Morocco final. But that's what really is killing me with these big shots. They don't want to see it through because once you're good, you get the first goal, see it through, kill them 5, 6, be done with them.
Nobody will allow
the diamond shaft. You see, when the Germans pack the German machine and they go up in a very long time, it's rusty now, and you get the first goal, you see it through. Make sure that you are not defending. You are not like a certain team I know who scores 2 and goes to sit back. See it through and make sure, because I think one thing they have, I think the thing is that these big teams like Morocco, I don't know if it's a thing of belief that they don't believe in themselves or they don't want to underestimate. Sometimes you need to have that arrogance about you.
I guess it's about caution. And like we're saying, maybe they might be cautious this evening because one is against South Africa. They know the South Africans. It's a round of 16 game. One wrong move and you are out. And I guess the weight of expectation might force them to be very cautious.
The thing about caution is when you give caution, you give confidence. When you are being cautious and the South Africans start to play, they become this is the mighty Morocco. Yeah. The more they grow in confidence, and it's the same thing for the Mali, Burkina Faso, the more you give the other team the confidence, the high likely they are going to find the back of the net because they believe in themselves that the enigma about you is no longer there. So that's the thing about caution. I feel like just stamp your authority from the get-go. If Morocco are able to stamp their authority first 10, 20 minutes, allow South Africa to play less football, then there's a high likelihood. But if first 10, 20 minutes, they score just a goal and they are not serious in finding any other goal, the South Africans would punish you.
Let's talk about Morocco's options, right? And on the bench, it looks like they do have some very interesting pieces they usually throw on Buffal and a few of these guys. You are Walid Regragui. You are just coming back from a 2-match ban. You've seen them in the stands. What kind of mix should he think of today as they try to unlock a South African team that can be quite stubborn?
Look, if you're Morocco, personally, I'd go with 2 out-and-out wingers, 2 really pacey wingers, or 2 skillful wingers who can beat their man. That way, you are able to create situations in which you isolate the fullbacks or whoever they are going up against, and then they can put balls into the box. If I were Walid Regragui, I'd put Ziyech in the number 10 position.
Okay, playing through the middle, not from the right.
Middle, not from the right. He's been good down the right for a lot of teams, Chelsea, Ajax, obviously. But I want someone to pick the pass. And Nesri is being underutilized at this moment.
Yes.
They're not giving
I really feel sad for him.
Yes, they're not giving him the service that you would require. And on the right-hand side, I know he can whip in balls or everything, but it's a little difficult for Hakim Ziyech to beat players on that right-hand side. He can't get past any players, so he can't put in the right balls. If he's in the middle, he can pick the passes out for Nesri. Set pieces, obviously he's good at those. But I feel that if you have 2 wide players who can actively beat players, you can create situations in which they are isolated against wingers, beat them, and put balls into the box. That creates the best option for
once the crosses are coming in now,
he's a fantastic player in the air. He's a good header of the ball. So once the crosses keep coming in, he's going to get a goal. And I feel that his qualities are not being used enough by the Moroccan team at this tournament, which is surprising because they've used enough of him at previous tournaments. So the fact that they are not getting the right balls to him is a bit of a surprise to me.
I think that Hakimi should be more involved. We talk about crosses, and I'm not seeing enough crosses or enough attacking output. Maybe it stems from the caution thing you're talking about, but they are definitely going to have the middle of the pack because the presence of Unahi, Amrabat, they are very formidable side. You see, if you are not going to use Ziyech on the wings, then utilize the fullbacks more often because most of the goals we've seen from these tournaments are coming from crosses. You look at Guinea's goal from a cross, Mane's assist yesterday from a cross. The crosses are very important, and if you have a fullback with the quality of Hakimi, you should be utilizing him more into your attacking output. Even against Congo, Hakimi is the one who got you the goal. He's very good at attacking wise, bringing more into the game. But if you have this defensive mentality all the time, you cannot utilize your potential. Okay. Even with Roman size, very good in the air. So utilize the set pieces. Make sure that Hakimi is more involved in the game. You are going to get possession of the ball, so be more adventurous with the ball. Yes, you might want to play amongst yourself, but try these long crosses. And I think South Africa is going to sit deep. And if they are going to sit deep, that's how come Enesri is a weapon for you, because he's very good in the air. So try more of the crosses. When the South Africans get the ball, there's not really much they are going to do that would hurt you, especially if you are well drilled defensively. So I think that's one of the best ways Morocco can hurt South Africa today. All just trying the set pieces and the crosses.
Predictions?
Difficult, but Morocco to go through, I think, on penalties.
On penalties?
Yes, on
wow,
penalties.
It's going that far.
I think it's going.
South Africa will go through.
South Africa.
I think South Africa would advance by the end
and the other game,
Mali to go through.
Mali to go through. All right, we'll see how all of these games will play out. Tomorrow we'll be back here to give you another exciting episode of the AFCON Daily Show. My name is Nathan Kwa, Edwin Kwakofi, and Kwame Safo were my wingmen. Show was proudly sponsored by Bet Power. We'll catch you tomorrow with another episode. Stay safe and see you later.